Every town has a ghost story that's been passed down through the generations. But what if those legends were true? My name is Miranda Young, and I'm the Ghost Biker. Hey everyone, happy Thursday, happy 2024. Hope everyone is doing well. I am the Ghost Biker and you are watching the Ghost Biker Garage. I'm so excited to have you guys here with me tonight, and we've got a great guest. We've had a great couple shows kicking off this year. Last week we had author JB Coates and TJ Justice and Justin Hayes on talking about some of the really cool events that they've got coming up here in the new year. One of them that I'm going to be a part of here in February at the Thomas House. So we had a really great spirited conversation last week, kicking off the new year with a great show. And here we are this week, also kicking off a great show with tonight's guest. So just want to say hello to some folks over here in the chat room. And hope y'all are having a great evening. Hello, Miss Sonia Thompson. Hope you're doing well. Mr. Bob Burnell, it's always great to see you. Good evening, Nancy Weems, Janet Alms, Daryl Paulette, and of course, Ronnie Anderson. Ronnie, I just want to say we are praying for Angie. I know she had surgery. I've been seeing a lot of stuff on Facebook about that, and just wonderful lady. I know Ronnie and Daryl, their team, great team, Bedford Paranormal out of Virginia there. So we love them, and we are definitely keeping Miss Angie in our thoughts and prayers here in the Ghost Biker Garage. So had a lot of really cool things that's happened this year. We have sort of, I do want to make sure I mention about the historic Scott County Jail and how we've kind of shifted our schedule just a little bit here with January. We've got so we're going to be closed every day except for on Saturdays. We are open by appointment only, so you can reach out to us either via phone, email, messenger on Facebook. We've got our cell phones listed on there. You can reach out to us if you have a group of 4 or more people and you'd like to take a tour of the jail on one of the days that we're closed. You can definitely reach out. We would be happy to come in, open up, and bring you in and take you on a tour of the jail. We are open normal business hours on Saturday with actual extended hours from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern time. So you can come in, you can do a self-guided tour. We're really heavying up on our after dark tours. We've got escape rooms booked every single evening. I think we've got about 7 of those escape room game slots that you can book and come and escape from one of our actual jail cells up on the 3rd floor in maximum security. You can come and take a flashlight tour. We're offering that every night of the week except for on Thursday nights, because we've got this podcast as well as the Jailhouse Informant that we do on Thursday evenings, and then also our private paranormal investigations. We're offering those 7 days a week from January 2nd to March 10th, and we're also offering extended hours. So if you want to come and investigate, that's going to be the time to do it, because you'll get the jail from 7 p.m. Eastern time to 4 a.m. if you book or anywhere on the calendar between January 2nd and March 10th. We do have our full calendar open until the end of August, and you can come in book anywhere on our Thursday through Sunday nights, and that would be our standard times that we have. We also have the historic Village of Rugby open, and you can during the months there, January through March, you can also book that 7 days a week. We're offering guided ghost hunts and then also lantern tours there at Historic Rugby. The lantern tours are by appointment only, because those are pretty much, for the most part, outside tours, where other than when we go into the buildings, and some of those buildings are not heated. So we do ask that if you have 4 or more people and you're traveling up here on the Cumberland Plateau and you would like a lantern tour of the historic Village of Rugby, we've got all of that information where you can book that tour, and it would be done by appointment only. So now that business there is out of the way, Well, one other thing I do want to mention, the historic village of Rugby is having their chili cook-off this Saturday night, and that starts at 5 p.m. Eastern time. We are going to have an information table sitting there. So if you're in the area, you can come down. You can get some great chili, participate in the chili cook-off. Come see us, get some information on our After Dark tours, and you can also participate in the silent auction. All the funds to that goes to support the historic village of Rugby Incorporated, and we're very, very happy to be there sharing what we do, and hope you'll come out and join us there. So I'm going to go ahead because I know, like I said, we've got a great show tonight. A lot of things to cover here. Yeah, I'm actually going to stop talking about chili, Nancy, because it's making me hungry as well. But I want to go ahead and get to tonight's guest because we've got some really great things to talk about. I actually had the pleasure of meeting tonight's guest when he came and did an investigation at the historic Scott County Jail earlier this year. He's actually been there twice, and we've ran into each other at multiple Paracons and conventions, one in particular, the Gettysburg Battlefield Bash. And it was just an absolute pleasure to meet this guy. We spent some time talking about what he does and really, really enjoyed that. So if you haven't heard of him, then you're definitely going to want to go and check out his stuff once we get into the show here. But my guest tonight is Mr. Vince Kelien. He's urban investigator, Mr. Vince Kelien, and he's been exploring abandoned and haunted places for over 10 years. He was introduced to the paranormal at the Waverly Hills Sanatorium in 2010, where a ghostly encounter on his very first day made him realize that there's more to this world than we can see. In the years since, he's had the privilege of helping to repair and maintain the historic structure, give tours, and manage the location's social media channels. He started the Waverly Hills TikTok account and gained more than 100,000 followers before he left. These days, he travels the country to discover brand new abandoned locations and revisit old favorites. Over the past year, he's been to Saratoga County Homestead, Norwich State Hospital, Penhurst Asylum, as well as undisclosed locations up and down the eastern seaboard. So if you will, help me in welcoming Mr. Vince Kelien. Hey, Vince.
Hello. How's it going?
Oh, it's going great. Thank you for taking the time to come on the show tonight.
I'm gonna use everything you just said, and I'm just gonna record you saying it and throw it on my website. So whenever people go and click on it, they just hear you talking.
Hey, I love that. Let me re-say it for you because I'm sure I got tongue-tied while I was trying to read it. So why don't you go ahead and because I don't think that introduction actually really did you justice. So why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit more about yourself and that experience that you had there at Waverly Hills.
So I started off with my very first paranormal encounter when I was 9. I was being a really dumb kid like everybody else and running up and down the hallways and acting a fool. And I ran from the kitchen all the way to the back bedroom, jumped on the bed, and I turned around and I saw what looked like a little girl crouched over in the corner. Didn't think nothing of it. When I became an adult, I brushed it off. I still remembered it to that day, but I just kind of brushed it off as like a, imaginary friend or a kid thing or whatever. I have always been fascinated with the dark, the strange, and unusual. It sounds cliche with like Beetlejuice or whatever, but every single year I was going to different haunted houses all around Kentucky, Indiana, Ohio. And right around the time when Facebook first came out, it was for college kids. Nobody else used it. It wasn't for anybody else. So when they opened it up to new users that weren't in college, I did what everybody else did. Everybody was done with MySpace at that time. And I saw an ad. I don't think Waverly had a Facebook page just yet, but I saw an ad that said that Waverly Hills was looking for haunt actors. So I was like, this is a perfect opportunity for me to use that to get in there. So I went up there and did my tryout, and we did zombie screams and cries and voices and running and walking and slow running and all kinds of clown screams, ghostly, whatever. And if you've ever been to Waverly, if you see a big old lock of red hair walking around, you know you've run into Tina. So I saw the big lock of red hair, and I immediately ran for the door. And I got over there, and I told her, I was like, "My name's Vince. I live 5 minutes down the street. I have a construction background. I'm just boosting myself up in hopes that she'd be like, well, we could use you
Mhm.
in any way possible." Um, and by that time, I had known quite a bit of Waverly's history to begin with. So, not believing in the paranormal, because that one encounter I had, I chalked it up to whatever. Um, Tina had looked over at Brian, who at the time I think was doing the haunted house. His name's Brian Ward. Um, and she goes, I think we can use him this season and next season and in between.
Nice.
He was like, so why don't you come up next, I think it was next Monday at the time or something like that, whatever. And why don't you come up here and, you can start helping build the maze or finishing up the maze for the first floor. So working all day, it's loud, it's hot, it's middle of August, it sucks. These old buildings, as you know, contain heat, and in the winter they contain cold, and
Oh,
it's
yes.
way more inside than it is outside.
Mhm.
I'm in the middle of the first floor in the x-ray room with my shirt off, and I'm sweating and everything else. It's about 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Everybody already went home, and Tina and Charlie went to go get dinner. So I pack up my tools. I start walking down the hallway. I get down to what we call the glass staircase. It's we've never really used it for anything. It's just an extra exit, or during the day, if you're doing maintenance or whatever, you can get in and out easily. And so I get down there. I set the alarm, open up the door, shut it, go out into the parking lot, and open up the trunk. And I hear what sounds like a red. I said a red. It sounds like a dodgeball hitting concrete.
Okay.
I turn around, I look up at the building, and I see a red dodgeball come flying out of the fourth floor solarium.
Wow.
The ball bounces in the parking lot and goes down into the neighborhood. If you've ever been to Waverly, you know the layout I'm talking about. So there's a neighborhood that
Mhm.
backs up. I left all my shit in the parking lot, trunk wide open, jump in the car, I took off down the hill. I get down, I go to open up the gate. I actually hit the trunk with the gate, the top of the hood of the car. I didn't care. So I back up the car, move the gate, get back in the car, and go to move. And when I'm about to shut the gate, I hear laughing coming from the top of the hill. And I look up towards the top of the hill right there at the driveway, and that red dodgeball is coming down. So the
Wow.
dodgeball that jumped down into the neighborhood would have had to jump back up into the parking lot, turn around, come the other way, blah, blah, blah. I call Tina on my way out, gates wide open, and I'm like, gates open for you. If you wouldn't mind having Joe grab my tools, they're out in the parking lot. And I'll tell you what happened when I get back in the morning. So I go back up there with caution. I sit down and I'm talking to Tina, telling her what happened. And she said, well, it sounds to me like you've been initiated. So are you going to stay and you're going to make things work, or are you going to be like everybody else and you're just going to run for the hills like a baby? So I stayed, and paranormal occurrence almost every single day that I've ever been to Waverly. Now this last little stint with Waverly I had, which was about 2 years, I spent more time in the building than I had ever have.
Mhm.
I was in that building more than anybody else. Everything from maintenance in the building to maintenance outside, to giving private and public overnights,
Mhm.
to regular tours, to historical tours, you name it, I was doing it. And that's not just me. Obviously, there was other tour guides and other people that helped and everything, but there was nobody up there that was up there as much as I was.
Yeah.
It was to the point to where it was breaking up my family.
Wow.
And as bad as it sounds, it bothered me because I've got kids. I love my kids.
Mhm.
But it didn't bother me because they knew where I was at. They love me. I love them. They
Yeah.
live with me, so I still saw them every single day. It wasn't like child support or anything.
Right.
But I loved that building that much that the people who were in charge on this last stint where I was up there was in the wrong.
Mhm.
And I didn't know it at the time, but they always made it account like, well, you need to be here, to make sure that the building is, safe and sound and we don't have trespassers and we don't do this, we don't do that, blah, blah, blah. So I spent so much time up there that it was killing my own like self-esteem. It was killing my family and everything else. But as far as I know, everything is up there. Everything's running like it should be now.
Mhm.
The people who were running it into the ground are gone,
Mhm.
um, and all is well. But that was kind of I had gotten fired from the wrong people that were up there,
Yeah.
um, and I had a hole in my heart, and I didn't really know what to do with it.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't know how bad StreamYard is, but I was on the verge of suicide at one time, uh,
Wow.
directly after. I'm sure there's some people in the comments and stuff that are probably like, well, how can you possibly care that much? Well, you can ask Miranda. There's a certain
Mhm.
passion, a certain love,
Mhm.
um, from every paint chip down to the last concrete particle.
Yeah.
And there's some people that will never understand, and I don't expect them to.
Mhm.
But being a part of something that big is like having a girlfriend. It's like having a wife. It's
Mhm.
like having a husband. It's like
Yeah.
having a boyfriend. Whatever your preference, it's it's everything to you. And then it gets pulled away from you, and you don't know what to do with yourself. Um,
Mhm.
During that time, the only thing that kept me going was friends and my kids, my family. So so I had some creator friends, and I'm sure you know some of them.
Mhm.
But some people like Kalani Ghost Hunter, and some people
Mhm.
like Haunted Nights, Stephen Dillon, and
Mhm.
um, Ghostly Travels with Zach, and a couple other
Yeah.
guys who was like, "Dude, stop being a bitch, stop laying around, stop moping, get up and go do something about it." And they was like, "There's more places out there that you can be passionate about, and you don't even have to work there."
Mhm.
So I started off with Ohio State Reformatory. And everybody knows Ohio State Reformatory from Shawshank Redemption. They know it from Danny Wimmer's Incarceration Music Festival, which ironically I work for him too. um, but I do concerts and stuff on the side. It's a personal hobby. But just a whole lot of ooh and ah and wow in a place that I had never been to.
Mhm.
And it kind of opened up my eyes a little bit at that point in time. And I was like, maybe it's not so bad that I am secluded down to one place.
Yeah, because it can. I know a lot of investigators and a lot of people like to get associated with a location, but
Mhm.
what a lot of the time they don't realize is it becomes a commitment and it really ties them down.
Mhm.
Even just a volunteer position in some of these places, because you do have that passion and love for it. It's a full time job in and of itself. Now, I mean,
Yeah.
Christy and I there with the jail, it is our full-time job. It's our career. I know,
Mhm.
I left corporate, to do this, and,
You were part of corporate America? Oh,
I was a
God.
marketing director for several large corporate firms for 21 years,
Wow.
and, yeah, ended up, in 2020 leaving, and, which I'm so glad because,
Mhm.
if I'd stayed in corporate, I think that I would have probably had an early death. It was
Oh,
just so stressful,
it was
so
killing you.
stressful. It
Yeah.
really was, yeah, and, this is stressful, but it's stressful in a different way,
It's a good
and
stressful.
it really is, it
Mhm.
really is. My job has always been a stressful job anyways, and it's always been very fast-paced, but I get to do what I was trained to do with marketing and design and do
And
it.
you were so good at it. That
Oh,
flyer that you put together earlier is
thank you.
crazy.
Thank you. I appreciate that. But it's doing it in a different way, and doing it
Yeah,
in a different capacity with making these locations and stuff accessible to so many people. And
yeah,
so, yeah, I mean, that's a huge feat that you did as far as I was really impressed when I saw that with your TikTok and
hmm
stuff, getting Waverly's page to that and being over their social media and stuff. That's huge in today.
yeah. So not a lot of people know that, but when everything got changed over and Tina and Charlie were back and everything else, they wanted
Mhm.
to. They didn't feel as if the TikTok account was. They didn't feel like it was done by them.
Mhm.
So I had to reiterate the account and
Mm.
just kind of make it my own because it was just me that was doing it and nobody
Yeah.
else was doing it. Now there was people that were jumping in and sharing and liking and commenting
Mhm.
and stuff, um but it was essentially it was just me. So they was just like, well, this is all of your work. This is all of your hard work.
Mhm.
So why don't you take it and do something with it?
Mhm.
So recently they've started a new account and they're doing really well. I've thrown some
Good.
pointers to the person that's running it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, Jessica Bullitt is running it now.
Okay.
One of the board members is running it, and then Donnie Yeaman is running drone shots and drone video and
Mm.
editing for them too. So it's really cool to see somebody else doing it. Me not having the stress of like three or four, five, six, seven different multiple
Yeah.
accounts on top of my own. Um,
Um,
but they're doing really well with it over there.
well, and I want to get to a couple comments here so that I don't get behind on
Mhm.
that. Ronnie says that Alan, Noah, and myself witnessed a small beach ball levitating on the third floor. An amazing experience.
Levitating or rolling?
That's wow. I think, Waverly's been one of the only places that I've been to, even during the day, that you just see shadows just running through the hall.
It's
It's
so
it's
insane.
common, so common there.
It's ridiculous. Not last winter, but the winter before, we had a snowstorm here in Kentucky, and it was to the point to where nobody wanted to drive on the road and everything. He said both. Oh my
Both.
god,
That's wild.
that's terrifying. I can't say much. I saw a ball get thrown out of a building, I guess. Um, but we got snowed in. Everybody kind of got snowed in, and there was like one or two people that stayed at Waverly for fear of like rolling down the hill instead of
Yeah.
driving down the hill.
Mhm.
Um, and I stayed up there for I think like 2 full days over the snowstorm,
Oh, wow.
and I didn't sleep. I've slept at Waverly before. Like
Yeah.
I've been there so often that
Yeah.
that's been a thing. I've stayed in the bunkhouse. I've stayed in the security office. I've stayed in the tour office. I've slept in the hallways. Just for fun, whatever. But
Mhm.
some people are like, "That's not fun." Um, but yeah, there's a whole lot of different things. But during that snowstorm, um, I don't know if it amplified it. I don't know because I
Oh.
wasn't like staying in one spot during the snowstorm. I wasn't staying in the warm area. I was walking
Mhm.
around the building and cleaning and stuff like that.
Mhm.
And it's wild for stuff like that, especially if you're there by yourself,
Yeah.
which I've done a million times, but it never ceases to amaze me. There was one time, the Easter before I left, where I took my son up there. I had to go do something for one of the board members. And I took my son up there. We were going to have Easter breakfast at my sister's or something. And William hadn't been there in a long time. And Tina used to babysit William along with her granddaughter out on the porch and a couple of while me and Joe and everybody else was working.
Mhm.
Um, there's been a couple different times where I'd walk out on the porch and he's just talking to somebody while he's watching something on my phone.
Wow.
And I was like, William, who are you talking to? And he'd say, James. Well, at the time, I lived at the apartments right below on the lower road,
Okay.
which before they were drugged out.
Mm-hmm.
And William lived there with me. And um, I remember one time waking up at like 2 or 3 in the morning, walking into his bedroom because I heard him talking. His lights is on and he is up and he is sitting there talking to somebody in the corner.
Wow.
And I said, William, who are you talking to? And again, James. And I'm like, just kind of looking at him. I'm like, I don't want to hurt his feelings because he's young.
Mm-hmm.
He's super young. And I don't want to be like, you got an imaginary friend or whatever. So
Mm-hmm.
I just kind of, and before I could say anything else, he was just like, well, James came home, came from work with you. And I was just kind of like, I don't know how to handle the situation. So
Yeah.
I have a weird thing with attachments because I don't necessarily believe in them, but I have
Mm-hmm.
like I think something can probably hitchhike with you, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But so I just kind of turned off the lights and I said, James, in the morning we're gonna get my truck and we're gonna go home and you're gonna stay there.
Mm-hmm.
This is personal space. You're not allowed to be here.
Mm-hmm.
And nothing ever again.
Wow.
Um, so going back up there, we're on the third. I'm walking him around. He hasn't been there in years.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm kind of walking him around and everything else. We get up to the fourth floor and I'm kind of showing him like I take him the tour route. We don't spend any more than 30 minutes there, but I'm taking him the tour route and showing him, telling him what we do and everything. And we get up to the fourth floor. And if you've ever been there, you know about this little experiment we call shadow people.
Mm-hmm.
And me and him both, we had to stop and look at each other to be like, what? And
Wow.
we heard a voice in real time say hi,
Mm.
and it sounded like a little boy. Now, at this time, William it was 2 years ago. He was 11,
Okay.
and he hadn't been there since he was 4.
Okay.
Um, and we both kind of looked at each other. And William starts like happy crying,
Wow.
and we walk away. And he goes, "Dad, do you think that was James?" And I'm like, "You're 4 years old when you were up here. How do you remember that?" He goes, "I've never forgot."
Wow.
Um, the building itself is a monstrosity. I think I can't remember. I think somebody called it a beautiful monstrosity, but
Mm.
the amount of paranormal activity throughout that building, the amount of love, the amount of
Yeah.
sadness, and there's so much of it, is really intriguing.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, what a place to have your first paranormal experience.
Yeah.
You know, we get a lot of people from that's come from Waverly,
Mhm.
that's investigated there, that comes down to the jail. That actually, we just had a group in there, that's going to book this year, that had you as a tour guide, and
Oh,
they were
that's cool.
saying, yeah, they were saying that their experience with you was one of the things that really turned them on to the paranormal.
No.
And so we get a lot of folks that come down to have just amazing stories about experiences they've had at that location. And, as far as an investigator, I was able to, I think the last time I was there was in 2018, I believe.
Mhm.
It was early 2018. And just, just an amazing place. If people haven't been there, it's definitely
Oh, it's
somewhere.
so worth it.
Yeah.
Shameless plug, therealwaverlyhills.com.
Yes. Yes. And I want to make sure I pull this comment up, because Jess put this whenever you were talking about the places, essentially the places getting attached to us in a way.
Mhm.
You definitely do fall in love with some of these places. It's it's very easy to do.
Yeah.
Um, and Sonia says she got chills with the James story. That
Usually when I tell the story, it usually the last time I told it, I think somebody actually got teary eyed over it.
I would say so. And, and that's something I've kind of heard about Waverly Hills. A lot of the folks who
I'm
live
sorry.
near.
I don't know if you saw the rat
I
back there.
did. I did. I was like, "Is he really there? We're talking about a child spirit, and all of a sudden"
All of a sudden, some dude's over here, some ghost is over here looking for the Uno cards.
Right? I've actually heard that from other people that live near, that it's not uncommon that, people from or some of the spirits from Waverly Hills do sort of make appearances or visits.
Well, see, this is something that I'm tricky with because the apartments was Waverly property.
Okay.
There was
Okay.
buildings that were literally where the apartments are. There was
That makes a lot
28
of
there was
sense.
28 buildings on the property. So I mean, after Albert Haskey got a hold of the property, he tore a whole bunch of stuff down, which, that's not my business and that's near or there, but it wasn't. I want to say it was probably about a year and a half ago. He actually
Okay.
had Albert Haskey's grandson on a tour.
Oh,
And he came
wow.
in, we were giving him a tour. Yeah, we didn't know who he was, but we were given this tour or whatever. And when it came time to talk about, Albert Haskey,
Mhm.
um, there's some people who don't like him because of what he did. He tore down some buildings, and there was one side of the building that he was digging into on the bottom west wing,
Okay.
to let it kind of collapse
Mm,
naturally.
mm.
And he had been on a couple tours before, and they talked shady on him, like they weren't nice about
Oh.
this. They weren't nice about the guy. So when he came up and we were talking about it or whatever, and he was like, he got teary eyed, and he was like, I just want to stop all of you for a minute and say what an awesome time this was, because normally if I come up here and I take a tour, this used to be my grandfather's property, and they would talk ill of him.
Mm,
And he was like, and this is the first tour I've been on that not so much.
yeah.
Not that anyone talked ill on him, but that when they brought up the name Albert Haskey, it was like, oh,
Yeah.
So I mean, it was like one of the first times or whatever, and it was cool. A cool
Yeah,
experience.
you have to be careful. We experience this a lot with the jail, and not as much with rugby, but definitely with the jail, because so many people, the stories that we tell affect so many people from
Hmm.
one side or the other, and it's not that far removed from a lot of the folks who come in. Sometimes
Hmm.
it's a parent, a brother, sister, a grandparent, and we stick to the newspapers, we stick to an unbiased, just putting the history out
Hmm.
there. And you have to be careful because you just never know who's on your tour and how, because no one would want to intentionally offend someone, I would hope.
Well, they weren't nice to the people at the jail. They hung them, and for things that didn't matter, and
Right,
so
true.
I mean, I used to be hardcore like that. My dad's in prison. He's been in prison in and out since I was a kid.
Mm,
I don't know a father figure, so I do my best for my kids. But I used to be like that when I go to these places like prisons and jails and stuff.
mhm,
I'd be like, no, forget these people. They were bad people.
mhm.
But you forget about it takes you a little bit of time to mature on that topic, because
Yeah.
there was people who were locked up that were innocent that you didn't know
Mhm,
about. There was people
mhm.
who, may have just been busted for pot. There may have been
Yeah.
people that were just busted for looking at a cop wrong.
Mhm.
So
Cussing
I
in the
mean,
street.
yeah, cussing in the street or something,
Yeah.
whatever. It. I actually think it was the Scott County Jail that made me. I have a big love and hate relationship with Scott County, only because it's so small, and I'm used to getting up and obviously and running or walking wherever, because my ADHD kicks in, whatever it's called, and I don't know which way to look or which way to go. So I have a love hate relationship for it, and I think it was the Scott County Jail that made me mature on that topic, because yeah, the first time I went to OSR, I was like, no, these I'll talk to these people how I want to.
Yeah.
But it took it took the Scott County Jail for me to quickly realize, like, yeah, my dad, whatever, he's not he's a good person, but he's a drug addict, so he's not going to mature
Yeah.
past that, and it is what it is, and I can't do anything about it.
Mhm.
But there was people in there that were innocent and that were okay
Yeah.
and that were not bad people.
Mhm.
And after seeing a couple different things at the jail, it made me realize that you need to not so much Zach Bagans your way through prisons and jails and stuff
Yeah.
like that.
Well, and too, just speaking from our jail, a lot of the stuff too was a different time.
Hmm.
Back in the 20s and 30s when things were happening, things were looked at completely different,
Yeah,
and also
she's a
the
witch.
area
Hang her.
too. Yeah, yeah, and too, even just the area too. Things are probably looked at a little bit different down here than it would be,
Sure.
there in Louisville. Um, but it does. It being in there every day and the conversations and stuff that we have with the inmates and the jailers and sheriffs and different folks that still hang around the jail, we've really learned there's a whole lot more to it than just why they're in there,
Yeah.
and they always want to share that. And we found that if we approach them in that way, a lot of the time they'll open up and
Yeah.
more so than. But now I will say, people who we get a lot of folks in who are corrections officers, police officers.
Hmm.
We've also had a lot of folks come in who have served time or who have had family members who have served time, and they draw on those
Sure.
experiences when they're dealing with them, and they get a lot of different activity than just some person that's coming in that doesn't have that background on either
Yeah.
of those sides. So, and let's see, gotta make sure. Uh, Ronnie asked, he says, is it true, kind of jumping back on Waverly here, he says, is it true that the building was once used as an old folks' home in the later years before shutting down?
Yeah, so 1961 Waverly shut down for good. 1962 it reopened as Woodhaven Geriatric Services.
Hmm.
So literally supposed to be an old folks home essentially, um, but people get confused with the way it was because of how people were treated during the nursing home days.
Hmm.
Um, because apparently this is not here nor there, but there's like one article I've ever found on it. But apparently, um, a healthcare worker came to Waverly to do normal rounds and stuff and keep up on the hospital and everything else. And apparently, the fourth and fifth floor were supposed to be used for medical records for the state of Kentucky, not just Waverly.
Oh, okay.
Um,
Wow.
and she found herself stumbling off of the fourth floor elevator to find people locked and chained in rooms, and they were in their own
Mm.
feces and they were in their own urine and they weren't being taken care of. There's there's actually a photo on that article that shows a man peeking through one of the door like
Okay.
slats or whatever. I
Uh-huh.
mean, just completely malnourished and neglectful and not being taken care of. And the woman on the other side was the healthcare worker that essentially started to get the place shut down. Um, but there was a whole bunch of reasons why Waverly got shut down. That was the tip of the iceberg. But like the nail in the coffin was a man in a wheelchair finding himself in an area he wasn't supposed to be in.
Mhm.
And finding himself face planting outside of the loading dock. So, I mean, there was a bunch of different reasons why Woodhaven got shut down, but a very, very adult Pinhurst esque kind of situation.
Okay.
But yeah, so Woodhaven Geriatric Services until 19, I want to say it was 71, I think.
Okay.
No. I'm wrong. Someone's got to fact check me on this, and this is totally okay. I haven't been up there in a long time. Might have been 80, 81.
Okay.
Because it
Okay.
stayed abandoned for God forever. At one point in time, Mitch McConnell wanted to turn Waverly Hills into the Louisville Zoo.
Wow.
At one point in time, a man wanted to turn it into a 328 bed hospital or prison. realized that we shouldn't recreate the movie Shawshank Redemption before it was even made.
Right.
As the concrete walls, you can scratch right through them. There's nothing to it.
Mm-hmm.
And with it being, around neighborhoods and stuff like that, it wasn't,
Yeah.
they pretty much got shut down on every idea they could possibly come up with. So it stayed abandoned for a long time. After Albert Heskey picked up on it, and there was ravers up there. There was drug deals and all kinds of other different stuff. 2001, Tina and Charlie Mattingly picked it up and started to fix his dad's dream of keeping it alive, essentially. Not his dad's dream, but just kind of in his memory.
Okay.
Putting Waverly on where it needed to be, put it on the map so it would stay standing and structural and everything else. But so Waverly Hills from 1926, which is technically 1910, which at one point in time they called it like Tin City. That's how they handled tuberculosis until like the Kirkbride age.
Mm-hmm.
And 1926, they opened up. They shut down 1961, reopened in 1962 as Woodhaven Geriatric Services, shut down 1980, 81, and abandoned until 2001. And she's been flourishing ever since.
Yeah. One of the paranormal meccas around.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Nancy. I really appreciate your compliment and kind words.
Oh, isn't that sweet?
And then James Brady says, good, bad, whatever the spirits need to be treated with respect, deserving or not. Absolutely.
Of course.
And thank you, Bob. Thank you for watching. Let's see. Ronnie says, I was just educated on this part of a history on Waverly, so you need to take that part of history when investigating.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people don't know this tidbit. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's the cool thing about a lot of these locations, like Waverly Hills, like St. Albans, even, the way with our jail,
Mm-hmm.
depending on what era you're really kind of looking into and who you're talking to, you can get completely different activity that may not seem related, but once you really dig in and learn that history, you do definitely you can see the connection in a lot of these places.
Sure.
So as far as paranormal investigation and urbex,
okay.
I know I started it myself. I started in paranormal investigating, but Ghost Biker ended up coming out of urbex. Yeah. I absolutely love urbexing.
Sure.
Which was the first for you, the paranormal or urbex?
Well, it's paranormal. Sure, when you're a kid, there's an abandoned store down the street, whatever. But so I think every child has that inkling to go check out the once flourishing Walmart that is now sitting in decay or whatever the case. But getting away from Waverly and not getting away, but branching out. I think I want to say my first. The guy's actually sitting in the room right now, but my first urbex trip was with a guy named AJ Ramper. He runs his company Ramp Up Photography.
Okay.
But my first trip was out to Gary, Indiana, which I was afraid like everybody else because at one point in time Gary, Indiana was the murder capital of the U.S. Now not so much. Now it's just sitting in ruin, and there's not a whole lot of residents. I think it's actually under 200,000 residents.
Oh, no kidding.
But they still have civilization. Like they've got a McDonald's and they've got a Taco Bell and Denny's and a couple other things. Haven't found the Walmart yet. But going through Gary kind of sparked two different ideas. One was that I can use these abandoned buildings to. I formed a new love with ruin and decay for people that own buildings, maybe even states or counties or whatever the countries even that own these places that just let sit and decay. So on that first trip, I said I wasn't never going to go again. And that changed really quickly when I realized when I was watching my own video. I don't know if you do that. You watch your own analytics and you're like
Yeah.
worrying about views and stuff. But I was watching one of the videos and I realized that during that trip, I didn't stop to appreciate anything.
Mm.
And it took a lot, and I used up a whole bunch of different avenues and a whole bunch of different things to make these videos from out of Gary.
Mhm.
And eventually I found myself getting an email from a representative from the mayor and letting me know that their revenue has shot through the roof. And
Nice.
they think that it has something to do with that first trip. They said that I think it was actually AJ who told me about. So the Union Station is getting turned into a concert venue this year, which was
Nice.
an abandoned train station. I don't know how the hell they're going to figure this out because it's butted up right next to the train station, or up next to the train tracks. They got to have a pretty good PA, but receiving basically just letting me know that revenue has popped up a lot more.
Mhm.
Now there's still some stupid people out there with gasoline and matches, and that's not our goal.
Mhm.
But letting us know that City Methodist Church is going to wind up with AJ just handed me something. Hold on. After 8 years of grants, they teamed up with Digital Equity on the $8 million restoration. The majority of the work will focus on the rebuilding the structure's roof, replacing its windows, and restoring its
Nice.
facilities, as its concrete walls have remained structurally viable even after 50 years of abandonment.
And see, and that's where I think if urbex is done right, I mean, I know urbexers get a reputation and stuff, but when it's done right, I think that it can really help these communities because I myself, I had some photos that I took of an old church that the now mayor of the county, when he
Mhm.
was commissioner, he used those photos to go and try to get the church on the National Historic Registry to start getting repairs
Nice.
and all that stuff done. So I think that when it's done right, when you're not essentially trespassing in there and doing all
Mhm.
this, but taking these beautiful pictures of this ruin and decay
Mhm.
and bringing awareness to it, because there really is a fascination with the community and with people. I don't know if it's because it's somewhere that it's given them a peek into something they might not typically go into. I'm not really
Sure.
sure why, but if done right, there really is a good place in the economic community for urbexers that there's a lot of good they can do.
So that was the second part of that email that I got, is that they were letting me know that City Methodist Church is now on the registration docket.
Wonderful.
So
Love it.
they are going to keep it as is, but they are going to clean up
Mhm.
um, and make everything that is not
Mhm.
structured again. With help from construction companies and stuff like that, because everything's going to be out of a nonprofit. But eventually, you'll be able to do the exact same thing that we did at City Methodist Church: just walk around and see everything, but
Nice.
in a very clean state. And the entire first floor um, of the church is going to be a ruins garden, is what they called it.
Oh,
So you'll still be able to urbex there, but it's going to be in a clean environment, and they're going to have employees, and they're going to
wow.
have people that are there to answer any questions that you need and things like that. So it's kind of, since that first Gary trip, I've done well over 300 locations since then.
Wow.
And that's kind of my goal. I've stepped away from YouTube a little bit, only because the YouTube is rough.
Yes.
It's not nice to anybody. It's nice to some people, but not to me right now. So I've kind of stepped away for a little bit, but we're getting back on the wagon this year.
Very
Um,
nice.
but that's my goal for this year, is to showcase these places. Some of these places that are sitting in ruin,
Mhm.
that urbexers don't give out locations, I'm going to name drop. And this is going to sound crazy coming from other urbexers, but
Mhm.
um, I'm going to name drop some of these big locations that are just sitting there.
Mhm.
And this is to make these owners, the state, whatever the case, realize that there's more to it. Hello.
Mhm.
Um, but to let them know that there's more to what they have than what they realize.
Absolutely.
There's a place in Alabama, and I see you scrolling through everything, but there's a place in Alabama called the Jemison Center. The locals call it Old Bryce Hospital,
Okay.
and right across on the same property is SD Allen Intermediate Care Facility. Um, Jemison was a all African American hospital.
Okay.
At one point in time, but it was at one point in time it was complete segregation. White people actually got to stay in the hospital, and African Americans had to sleep in stalls with horses. But it
Wow.
shows you how great our ancestors are. But this place is just falling apart for no reason. The University of Alabama is just essentially sitting on a gold mine, and they're not doing anything about it. I don't think I know of another state that has more abandoned places. Um, the
That's
state
fair to
training
say.
the state training school for girls right outside of Birmingham, Alabama's got 4 buildings on the property. Is a wonderful location. It's beautiful. Everything's structured. Yeah, the roof, some of the roofs are kind of caving in, but you know, grants, loans go a
Yes.
long way. If
Mhm.
anyone would just care to just see that.
Mhm.
But this is going to kind of be my goal. That's the state training school. But if people would just simply take just a little bit of initiative, whether you're a building owner that doesn't really know what you have and you don't know what to do with it, I'm going to show you what to do with it. I'm going to do my best to show you what it could be, what it can be. Well, why is this guy in my building? Because it's a gorgeous building, and I
Mhm.
would. You didn't care enough to barricade the door. You didn't care enough to barricade the windows, um, and you just let people in here, and you don't care about it. There's graffiti everywhere to prove that. Um, and you just kind of pretend like it doesn't exist when you physically own the place. There's a certain bit of historical preservation and restoration that is overseen in the paranormal community, the urbex community, and a bunch of other communities that you just don't. That's a really that was one of my. I was still. I don't do it anymore, but like I used to put a bunch of goofy stuff in there in my videos. It's terrible. God, looking at it now, this is. I want to throw up. But wait till you come around the corner. So this is really funny. Whenever I was coming around the corner, I wasn't filming, and I was like, like I got really excited when I saw the building, and I was just like in shock and awe that I actually ran back. That's why it cuts right there. It's because I ran back to actually film it and talk on the video. But
Okay.
just I want these people to understand that there is, if you're hurting for money and you don't know what to do, get out
Mhm.
there with a lawnmower, take
Mhm.
some pictures, make a Facebook account, make a website, whatever you can afford to do
Mhm.
at the point in time. And you can make some money for yourself, and you can put some
Mhm.
love, some preservation, and some restoration into these places and not
'Cause
be
they
and not
will
have any
come.
issues. They will come. Everyone
Yeah.
will come.
Yeah.
Um, I actually have a place right now in right outside of Mobile, Alabama, that a person just like us, just like me and you,
Mhm.
who works for a place, that's obviously I don't work for one anymore, but works for a place um, that keeps up all kinds of different all these different buildings at this location called Searcy Insane Asylum. And there's not a single bit of it that the state wants to play with. They want nothing to do with it, but they own it. So the caretaker is trying to get them to sell it to her so she can make it happen. Well, they've
Mhm.
agreed to allow me and a few others to come down there and film.
Mhm.
whether it's urbex or it's ghost hunting,
Yeah.
and throw all the history in with the video, but
Mhm.
just to kind of show the state of Alabama what they're missing out on,
Mhm.
and the state has agreed to let us do it. So that'll be a really good one coming up this year. But I was so mad about this part of the video, I didn't realize that there was a side door that was not overgrown.
Ah. Well, do you think that if there wasn't this element of decay and dilapidation, do you think that if it was say, a nice pristine building, do you think that there would be as much interest from the community? And I'm talking about the community as a whole, whether it
Mhm.
be urbex or the ghost hunting community.
I'm not really sure I understand the question. What was it?
I mean, do you think that if there wasn't this element of decay and dilapidation in these buildings, do you think that there would be as much interest from the community to be in? Because I'll say this way, our jail, I mean, we keep it, we got a tourism grant for it,
Hmm.
and we keep it really clean, for one, for the point to where so you don't get the contamination of dust orbs and stuff like that when people are in there. So we keep it clean.
Orbs.
Yeah. We keep it clean, and so, to cut down on anomalies and such,
Mhm.
and then also just because we do have other people other than just ghost hunters. But, I mean, I've stayed in some places, spent the night in places that have no heat or air, have no bathrooms, you
Yep.
gotta go pop a squat outside. You leave, you are I used to kinda joke and say that, I wasn't really worried about COVID because I've breathed in so many other things in these locations that my lungs are they're protected.
Yeah.
So but all that aside, do you think that if that there is a sort of, I don't wanna use the word romanticism, but, with these locations because they are in more of that, just dilapidated
I think there
condition?
is, and I think places like Waverly and Penhurst and you can't really say Tyler because they've cleaned up a lot.
Yeah.
But places like those, like this place here,
Mhm.
obviously, it's a hot spot. Look at all the graffiti.
Yeah.
People's been in there a million times.
Mhm.
I think that I think that there's a need and a want, but um, yeah, this place is gonna need some TLC. It's gonna need some
Mhm.
love, but some scrapers to the wall to knock off the paint chips every so
Mhm.
often.
Mhm.
Pull out all the carpet, sweep up every day, do what you're supposed to do. And
Mhm.
I don't, some painting, obviously, with bad
Yeah.
words, but,
Yeah.
um, yeah, I just you can still get it without having to worry about asbestos or lead
Mhm.
paint or whatever, because there's still plenty of these places we go to,
Mhm.
legally, that have it,
Mhm.
and you can't do anything
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah. Well, I know I just hear people talk about they'll go into some of these places that are essentially abandoned and shut down that's had a lot of work done to them. And they're like, well, it's not much different than walking into a new jail or a newer location. And some people are turned off by that. So you kind of have to, from what I've found, you kind of have to find that balance to where it's still old and gritty, but
I can tell
taken
you now
care
that
of.
there's no part of the Scott County jail that I was ever like, this is like walking into a new jail. Not to like discredit anybody or anything,
No,
but
no.
like, no, it doesn't have that feeling.
Well,
Um,
if you had seen it before they got the grant, it
I
was, I
remember
mean,
the pictures. You showed me
yeah,
pictures at Gettysburg.
yeah, yeah,
The place was a wreck.
yeah.
It looked like this place with jail cells.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, lead paint just hanging like streamers from the
Yeah.
ceiling.
Um,
Um,
but that's the goal at the end of the day. I do not care if they were to take this place, as long as they don't tear it down.
yeah.
There's nothing wrong with the building. It's structurally sound. Do what
Mhm,
you need to do to come up to fire code and what you need to do to come up to health building code. And I don't care if you turn it into apartments. I
mhm.
don't care if you turn it into a hotel. I don't care what you do with it. Fix it.
Utilize it. Yeah.
Fix it to something. I know as urbexers, we get upset. We get to a location that we haven't been to yet, and we're like, "This is going to be great." And then all of a sudden, we're in Nashville, and they've turned the Nashville state. They've tore down half of it, and now the other half is being used as apartments. And you're like, "Damn."
Yeah.
But at the same time, they've done something with it. And for
Mhm.
me, I don't know what other urbexers' goals are, but for me, it's to get these people to realize you have money, fix it
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
make it work for your advantage, whether it's ghost tours, whether it's historical tours, whether it's apartments, I don't give a damn what you use it for, but
Yeah.
fix it and get it to where it's loved and cherished again.
Mhm. Well, because too, whenever you have a building like this sitting here, it entices people to come in too. It
Yeah.
entices people to do nefarious things, to,
Yeah.
use it to hide bodies or sell drugs in or do what have you.
Did you see my post today
Um,
about that?
no,
The brains in the tub. You didn't see that?
no, I didn't see that.
So I can't remember what year it was, but the Texas the Texas State Insane or Lunatic Asylum. I'm not sure. I have to do more research on it. But an urbexer was going through there after it was abandoned, shut down after a few years or whatever. Found a tub full of brains.
Wow. I'll have to
Talk,
have to look
talk.
that up.
Yeah, go take a look at that. I made a joke out of it. I was like, the my timeline today's been shit, but like, I heard that the Texas State um lunatic asylum has some brains here. Maybe some of you could use a few. But yeah, it was real. So like it took me
Wow.
like I was joking about it and then I went and looked back and I was like, this was no joke. The guy, the one of the main doctors or whatever, got permission from the people's families who had already died if they were getting cremated, if he could, for
Oh.
research and for development and stuff, and didn't know what to do with them. So they were sitting in a tub. He had them sitting in a tub in some kind of fluid. I don't know if it was water. I don't know if it was embalming fluid or what, but um, real,
Wow.
100%.
Well, that sounds just healthy to, you
Right?
know. um, just looking at the comments over here, ghost hunting housewives. They're out of Alabama, and she says, "Yes, so many places here in the South. I found the South doesn't preserve like the Northeast does. I'm from Alabama, and it's very sad."
No.
Um, yeah, you do run into some places like that.
Yeah.
That they just, you know, um, they don't realize what they've got until it's gone. And Ronnie says, check out, let's see, Swananoa, maybe Swananoa Palace in Afton, Virginia. It needs some TLC, but the owner needs a little push. If you see the place, you would know what I mean.
I'll look that up, Ronnie. Ronnie, can you send me a DM? Yeah.
There you go. Um, and let's see. Nancy says, I've watched a man in France who bought and rebuilt a building that took in Jewish children from the war. Wow.
Ooh, that sounds like fun.
Yeah, no kidding. And Ronnie says yes, he will
Thank you,
send
sir.
you.
Appreciate you.
But that's what I think is really cool about this because you do have the audience, Vince, and you've got the drive for that, and then the talent to put the content together. So it really is something that I think more communities and stuff should pay attention to. If you can just, if you can just get the ear of the right person, um,
Sure.
I think it can go a long ways.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Um, so kind of stepping back a little bit off of the urbex and
Mhm,
talking just a little bit about some of your some of your ghost hunting and
mhm.
paranormal investigating videos. You've got quite a bit of those out. You travel around quite a bit.
I stay busy. I'm very blessed and very lucky in what I have right now. I've got a longtime boss that I used to do cable for a long time ago, and for quite a number of years. And he was, um, we parted ways, and I started working for my apartment's maintenance crew.
Okay.
And then I was asked to come back to Waverly, so I stopped working here. I went to Waverly full time. And then when I left Waverly, I was, I think I was at the time. I think I was living on COVID assistance for for a long while. It was coming in, so I was utilizing it.
Yeah.
I was putting food on the table for my family, and I was. But in the meantime, I was also using that time to travel until I figured out what I was going to do. Um, and a lot of it's just luck. I was in New Orleans on a ghost hunt at a place called the Haunted Hotel, which is you need more than one time at a place to really tell if the
Yes, you
place is
do.
haunted. But I think they were really just trying to play off the New Orleans thing. I could be wrong, but it just didn't really seem like there was just nothing. But maybe it could have been because how many people were there or whatever the case. But
Hmm.
plus, New Orleans is loud.
Yes.
Um, but so yeah, they just I really don't know how to explain it, but oh god, my face. I didn't realize what you're doing. Um, but yeah, so it was just kind of back and forth here and there, and I got some invites to go out to a couple different places with a couple different people. At the time, I was with Cross Country Paranormal. We split
Hmm.
ways probably about a year ago, only because the owner is having some health problems and stuff. But um, the two people that are sitting in the room with me right now has been to probably about 90% of the places with me, if not maybe a little bit more. Um, but we, most of the time I'm not by myself unless it's and I'm at work. So when I went to Louisiana for that trip, my old boss Greg kind of popped up out of nowhere. He was like, "Dude, I'm in New Orleans too. My daughter's cheer competition is down here, whatever." So he was like, "Are you on a ghost hunt? Like, can I come and look? Can I come and see the building, whatever?" And I was like, "Yeah." So he came out, and I paraded him through this crowd of ghost hunters that was like, "What are they doing here?" And I took him up to the room that I was staying in, which was supposed to be like the most haunted room in the hotel. And we're just kind of talking, and he goes to leave, and he stops and he goes, "Dude, I know you're not working at Waverly anymore, and I know you're hurting." He was like, "Come back. I'll take you out of the field. You don't have to be in the field anymore. You don't have to do cable anymore. You work directly for me." Um, and he was like, "We got 401k and insurance and all that kind of stuff now." Um, so I used to be a licensed cable contractor. I used to do cable, internet,
Okay.
and TV. Um, and me and him had kind of had a falling out. And so when I went back, he was like, "I'll just move the cars because we're kind of all over the U.S.
Hmm.
So I take a car to another tech, and then I bring that car back to Kentucky to have it worked on." Well,
Okay.
a lot of those times I have to stay overnight,
Hmm.
and 90% of the time I have found a place, and that makes life so much easier. And my
Yeah.
boss is so supportive. He's like, I don't care what you do while you're in the company car, as long as the car gets to where it's going and the other car comes back. I don't care what you do. You can even stay one more day if you need to on company dime. So my boss is, I'm very fortunate to have who I have for a boss. He also sponsors all my stuff. So if you've ever been to one of the
Nice.
conventions, you've seen the tent, you've seen
Yeah.
the fancy tablecloth and stuff like that. All comes from my boss. Um,
Wonderful.
he's such a. There's a lot of people that are probably like, "You're lucky." Oh, well, not so much. Uh, I'm just very blessed,
Yeah.
and anyone would kill to have this kind of support. Because he's all like, "Dude, like if I go book that place that you just went to next year, will you go with me?" I'm like, "Yes." What? I'm never going to turn down a free investigation. Are you out of your mind?
Right.
But yeah, he's the reason why I've been able to be at so many places in so little time. Um, and this year is really no different. I've got like 5 or 6 cars in the next month to go take to Tallahassee. I got to take one to New York. I got to take one to Alabama. It's a lot of traveling, but it's well worth it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, guys, I definitely recommend you all go and check out. We've put the links in the show notes. I've also been flashing some of those links up on the page. Go check out Vince's TikTok page, his YouTube channel. If you go to just his website, it's got links to his videos as well. It's
Yep.
probably one of the best places that you can go and find what you're looking for, because it's got links to everything. And I highly recommend you subscribe to his channel and
Thank you.
show him some support, follow his stuff, because he's always putting some great stuff out there. And again, making communities aware of some of these hidden treasures that they've got kind of lost to time back in their area. So thank you so much. What do you have coming up, Vince? Any events? I know I've seen some things that if people want to come and see you or meet you in person.
Well, we got a couple. Next weekend, actually, we'll be at the Bell Mansion in Fort Wayne, Indiana, for the 19th and the 20th, for the 28 Days Haunted Crew takes on the Bell.
Nice.
I think the first night is a VIP party. The second night is actually investigating. And during the day, you go in and check out all the vendors, go do a meet and greet with the cast and everything else. So that's going to be a lot of fun. And plus, Shane has been like a really good friend of mine since the last time, or not the last time he was at Waverly, but the time before that. We've just kind of stayed in contact. So Shane's become a really good friend of mine. But there was, so after that, then we have, oh my gosh, I'm losing my track here. So we have Bell Mansion, we have the Parasicon at OSR. That I'm going to be vending at as well. I say vending, but 9 times out of 10, it's me just handing you a business card and a sticker and thank you for coming to my table. Check out my stuff if you get a chance. And this year, regardless if I am announced as a special guest or not, which I'm really hoping, I will be at FCI Con, MagCon, and ISS Con, all 3 events. There's something special about the Gettysburg Battlefield Bash this year that I'm not gonna say on here, but there's something very special coming up out of kind of nowhere that is going to be kind of fun to see, and I think the announcement's coming here soon, but it's going to be pretty cool. For anyone who is curious as to the crew that I'm out with all the time, you can check out Outcast Paranormal on Facebook, TikTok, stuff like that. The only reason I said that is because you were pulling up the bonfire, and that's actually the first hoodie is Outcast hoodie.
Okay, is that with a K or a C?
It's
that link here.
It's C, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's spelled normal.
Okay.
But then we have Michigan Paracon, which Shane talked me into. Because he was like, dude, it's so much fun and you're going to meet so many new cool people and blah, 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 blah.
It's a big one for sure.
Yeah. So he was like, dude, you got to do this one. I was like, okay, fine. Got a big TV celebrity guy that's like urging the little guy to go to a place to vend at. So I was still skeptical, but I think Michigan Paracon is going to be a lot of fun this year. And there's a lot of big names announced for it. So
yeah,
it ought to be good. It ought to be a fun one.
Now, do you post your events somewhere on, I know I see you post them on your personal Facebook page. Do you have an events tab anywhere that if people want to find that?
So there's an events tab on Instagram. There's somebody that actually runs the website. I don't do it myself.
Okay.
Because I'm illiterate with Bluehost. I don't know how to operate Bluehost at all. But so we're still kind of like working out some kinks with the website because it's kind of new.
Okay.
But I've actually had it since my birthday last year.
Okay.
Not this year, but last year. But not really knowing what to do or how to do it or anything. So there's some other website platforms that I do know how to use, but he was like, we can't use those. And I'm like, okay. So we're just kind of doing some new things, but there's an events tab on Instagram, and there will be an events tab here shortly on the website as well.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, like I said, folks, definitely plan to go and check Vince out. And we've got some really bad weather coming here on the
Oh
East Coast here.
God.
So, what better way to do than sit back and binge some urban investigator stuff, binge some ghost biker stuff, check out the
Yeah,
historic Scott County Jail. Just spend some time to sit inside your house, as long as you don't lose power, and binge on some great content creator materials. We would definitely really appreciate that. And
of
if
course.
you feel so inclined, please feel free to like, share, and subscribe. It's something, it doesn't cost anything, but it goes a long way for us content creators, and it's very, very much appreciated.
I know
So,
some old heads that are like, it costs me my sanity. And
right.
calm down, man.
Right. Just turn the notifications off then, but
Right.
give the thumbs up
Like
and
my TikTok has 91 notifications. I don't know how to shut it off.
right. Well, Vince, I really appreciate you taking the time to come on
It was a
tonight. I know
blast.
you're a
I
busy
had so much
person.
fun.
Wonderful. Well, um, we'll definitely have you back on the show here after a little bit later on in the year, after we've gone around and
Yeah,
done some more events and put out some more videos. We like to follow up and see how you're doing.
I'd love that.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Well, guys, next week, let me just check the calendar right here. I want to make sure that I do say it right, because we got a lot of things going on. Next week, I'm going to have Miss Allie Kraus and Larry. Whoops, I don't know if Larry's going to be with her. He may be. We'll see if he's going to be here, but we may have Larry Eisler on with her as well. So they're going to be on next week at 9 p.m. Eastern time here on the Ghost Biker Garage. So you're definitely going to want to tune in for that, because we're going to have a great show. She's probably even going to do a reading for me. So I'm real excited about that. Again, everyone, please stay safe out there. I know the weather is supposed to get kind of rough over the next couple days. So if you're over on this side of the country, batten down the hatches and stay warm and stay safe. And so until next week, hope everyone has a good night. Bye, everyone.
Have a good one.